The November 23rd, 2020 meeting of the Public Safety Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Alcoffer.
Here.
Mr. Alcoffer is present. Ms. Boyce.
Here.
Ms. Boyce is present. Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mr. Delahanty is present. Mr. Flagler Mitchell. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
He's muted, I guess.
Mr. Cuafet Lacey.
Here.
Mr. Cuafet Lacey is here. Ms. Lamar.
Here.
Ms. Lamar is here. Roman.
Here.
Ms. Roman is here. Ms. Taylor. Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Ms. Taylor is here. Mr. Terp.
Here.
Mr. Terp is here. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell is here.
All right. So we're going to need to suspend the rules of the legislature for the purposes of prohibiting public in-person attendance in accordance with Executive Order 202.1, which is extended through December 3rd by Executive Order 202.72. You have a non-debatable motion on your agenda which needs to have a maker and a second. Who would like to move and second that?
I can move it. Legislator Roman.
Second. Second.
Moved by Legislator
Roman.
Roman, second by Legislator Alcoffer, I believe.
Yes.
Kind of hard to tell. Okay. Is there anybody signed up for the public
We need to
forum?
vote. We'll have to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll have to vote on that. This is new for me, so please bear with me. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Is there anyone who signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Okay. So next on the agenda, we'll have a presentation by Robert Franklin. He's our Chief Financial Officer over the proposed 2021 Monroe County budget. And so, Mr. Franklin, you may go ahead and give us our presentation with regards to Public Safety Committee, and then we'll have a question and answer period following the presentation.
Bob, if you're talking, you must be muted.
Bob, are you there?
Okay, so I was,
We're getting an echo on his
If you-
microphone.
Yeah, if you have the YouTube video playing, that might be causing the echo. You may need to mute your device.
okay, sorry, Jack and Madam Chair, sorry, we were trying to use the video on the laptop, but talk through the telephone system, and that apparently was not working.
Okay.
All right, I'll just jump right back in. Public safety spending within Monroe County proposed budget. It's the second largest segment of expenditures It accounts for about 21% of our total spending. Oh, come on. Okay, look. This is not working for me. Sorry, Jack. Sorry, Madam Chair.
We
Take
are
your time.
all new. Don't worry
I'm
about it.
new.
Well, in your opinion.
All right. 4 major areas pertaining to the public safety sector. Our Office of the Sheriff, our Department of Public Safety, our Office of the District Attorney, and our Office of the Public Defender. I'm showing you the adopted budget for 2020, its amendments during the year, and then the proposed budget for 2021. Each of these offices typically brings forward legislative referrals throughout the year to accept grants and amend their operating budget. The largest of those referrals has been to accept additional state funding for the Public Defender's Office and the Conflict Defender's Office, related to the state's lawsuit settlement of the Hurl Herring lawsuit. That was quite significant and will be growing each year for the next 3 years. Within our Office of the Sheriff, total appropriations are running only about $1.8 million higher than what was adopted for 2020. It's an increase of about 1.1%. Almost 80% of the sheriff's appropriations are in payroll and benefits. Depending on the union, employees may see a pay raise anywhere from 1.5% to 2%, except for the jailers union. Their contract, which was ratified in early 2018, included a 7.5% pay raise for the 2021 calendar year. Overall, the combined increase to payroll and benefits amounts to about $3.9 million. Offsetting much of that increase are lower costs associated with serving the reduced jail population and elimination of the $1 million cash capital funding of their jail mainframe capital project that had been included in the 2020 budget. And lastly, we see about a $500,000 reduction in their revenues. That is largely due to holding fewer unarraigned city prisoners brought in by RPD. Turning to our Department of Public Safety, within that department, appropriations have come down by almost $1.8 million. A couple notable, several high dollar savings from items no longer in the budget. And those include a one-time cost of $1.5 million in 2020, and that was for a phone system upgrade at the 911 center. In 2020, we had the final $1.3 million debt service payment for the, I'll call it the failed replacement of the 911 dispatch system by Tiburon. That was a project kicked off back in 2010. They failed to deliver. Monroe County filed a lawsuit against them, and we won. And then finally, there was a final $1.5 million maintenance payment to Harris Corporation in 2020, and that really related to their final maintenance of the trunk radio system. Some of the savings from those 3 major items supports a one-time increase in their debt payment related to M3S, and an increase in cash funding of a couple of their capital projects, while the balance of the savings offsets the expected reductions in revenue, which you can see from this screen, running almost $3 million lower than what was adopted for 2020. Public safety is a large department. There's 13 operating divisions. So I'm presenting you here only the 4 largest, just for the sake of the real estate on my screen. The bulk of the 911 appropriations really is for our contract with the city of Rochester. This division had higher 2020 appropriations because of that phone system upgrade that I mentioned and the debt service on that CAD dispatch replacement system back in 2010. The Division of Probation and Community Corrections, that's the second largest division in the department. And while their appropriations are a little lower than what was adopted for 2020, you'll see a referral in the next several months, probably in the spring of 21, to accept state funding through DCJS related to Raise the Age. The Public Safety Communications Division, that is everything radio, microwave, data, paging for the county's first responders. This is the division that no longer has to budget that system maintenance payment to Harris. That was the one that was about 1.3 million. But this division also is the one that accounts for the debt service for merging M3S back into Monroe County. And while Judicial System Support is the fourth largest division in the department, it's not exactly the meat and potatoes of public safety. It's really more administrative, managing the cost of housing the court system over at the Hall of Justice and the appellate division over on East Avenue. Briefly looking at the Office of the District Attorney, the 2020 budget of the DA's office included higher chargebacks from Monroe County IS, and that's really related to the district attorney's installation and implementation of their e-prosecutor system and the system's interface between e-prosecutor and the 911 dispatch system. Without those higher chargebacks from 2020, we see lower administration and support services appropriations, which provides a nice offset to the modest growth in the trial divisions. District Attorney Office revenue projections are only slightly lower from 2020, and that really stems from reduced stop DWI fines received from the state of New York. And then last but certainly not least, our Office of the Public Defender. This is where you generally see the greatest variation between adopted budgets and amended budgets each year. Each year, the State Office of Indigent Legal Services, OILS as they're called, provides a 3-year funding allocation to the PD's office. It's roughly $1.5 million or so each year. In addition, due to the Hurl Herring lawsuit settlement, OILS is also providing additional funding to expand indigent defense services. The settlement funding is expected to grow each year for 5 years. We're currently in year 2, and then level off. State funding, as you probably know, does have strings attached, such as requiring counsel at first appearance and expectations around case assignments and case workload. As a result of these new requirements, additional staff positions have been added in 2020 and have been requested for the PD's office, as well as the conflict defender's office in the public safety department. And Madam Chair, that is my final slide. As soon as I can stop sharing, at your convenience, I can entertain questions.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. I'll now open the floor to any committee members who have questions in the public safety portion of the budget. I'd like to actually start as the public safety chair. I have several questions I'd like to ask, so bear with me, and we're going to start. Is there any funds budgeted for 2021 to perform additional testing on the county's trunked radio system? And if so, what is the timeline for those tests, and what involvement have the end users and subscriber agencies had in formulating the parameters for that test?
Madam Chair, there are dollars included in the public safety budget for the radio system. When it comes to additional dollars, I would suggest no, there's probably no incremental dollars. We do have Jennifer Hagan on the line or Chief Tantillo, if they would like to chime in with more specifics.
Thank you. I'll recognize Ms. Verhagen.
Hi, Chief Tantillo is going to address that. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, Rich Tantillo. So in regards to the trunk radio system, and the audit was just completed, associated with that project. The response and the review came back very favorably. And any areas that they suggest that we move forward with, we'll be working with Chris Fish and Radio Communications in order to make those enhancements. The trunk system is certainly evolving each and every day on the fire side and now on the law enforcement side. So as we continue to deploy resources, we make sure that the equipment is working effectively, not only in the street, but in any infrastructures that they may be operating in. So it's really a daily assessment that we do conduct with the first responders and in particular with law enforcement right now.
Thank you. So how much, if any, fund balance is being applied to the public safety budget? And if general fund balance is being applied, what is a breakdown of the restricted versus the unrestricted applied fund balance, Mr. Franklin?
Madam Chair, for 2021, there is no use of appropriated fund balance. There was in 2020, and that was specific to capital projects from our reserve for bonded debt, but zero for the 21 budget.
Okay, so this might be maybe something that's similar, but have any of the capital projects included in the 2020 through the 2025 capital improvement plan and funded as part of the 2020 capital budget been delayed, downsized, canceled as a result of the appropriation restrictions imposed due to the county's financial portion as a result of COVID-19 pandemic? And if so, can you provide this committee with the list of those affected projects and revised budgets and or, project timeliness or timelines, I should say?
Madam Chair, there was a, regarding the cash capital transfer for public safety projects, those were put on hold for much of the year. The Controller's Office did make those transfers either late November or, late October or early November. So those are available to departments. Regarding capital projects using bonded dollars, those have been, expenditures from those projects have been reviewed on a case-by-case basis. I think you will get differing opinions on the impact that may have had. I would suggest that those capital projects continue to move forward. And if departments, public safety or any other department felt that a project was critical, they made it perfectly clear to me how critical it was. And we put through those approvals.
Okay. So my next question would be, what is the breakdown of the public safety as it relates to the appropriations charged to the general fund, debt service fund, and the capital projects fund?
So, Madam Chair, the Department of Public Safety budget doesn't actually charge the debt service fund or the capital funds. Dollars tend to flow in the opposite direction. For example, you will see on page 293 of the budget book for public safety, there's an appropriation by object called provision capital projects. It's 1.247 million. That is budgeted in the general fund. It's the department's operating budget. And through adoption of the budget, those are dollars that can be transferred from the general fund to the capital funds during 2021. When it comes to debt service, the debt service you see in public safety, all these budgets show you the budget for the department across all funds. So when you look at the appropriations by object and you see debt service related to public safety next year is I'll call it $2.7 million. That is residing in the debt service fund. It's just coded as Department of Public Safety, so we can make that identifiable. Those dollars will be transferred also after adoption of the budget at various times during the 21 calendar year. And there was another fund you asked about, Madam Chair, and I'm only remembering debt service and capital. What was the third one?
Just the general fund.
Okay, so thank you, Madam Chair. The general fund, I just lost my train of thought on that. The general fund would account for all the other appropriations within this division, this department. So the general fund would be impacted by everything except debt service. And that is all.
Okay, and then my next question I do have is, and I apologize, and maybe you maybe have answered this during the formal presentation, but what is the percentage of the departments mandated versus non-mandated?
That's the number I'll have to get back to you on, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. And what is the department's total indebtedness at this point?
Madam Chair, we don't generally.
That might have been something I came up with these questions, ahead of time, so I think maybe that might have been redundant, so I apologize.
No, that's okay. That's quite all right. We don't exactly show our outstanding debt by department. We basically show it by issue. But that's something I can look at for you. Okay.
So I have a question, and this was with regards to appropriations for travel that rose from 1,900 amended in 2020 to 4,000 in 2021. And given the fact that conferences all over have been canceled, what are we going to use those funds for at this time?
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. That would be on page 440.
Thank you.
And that's line number 504005.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That budget basically has been increased from prior years for attendance at least two of the NISAC conferences and the annual meeting of the International Association of the Chiefs of Police. While it is true that it's very likely that conferences may be canceled in 21, we took the approach of putting this budget together over the summer before the surge in cases really presented themselves locally. If conferences are canceled and this budget line were to go unused or underused, those dollars would sit in travel until such time that the department either requested a transfer or if the COVID cases becomes a greater emergency to the county, those may be transferred for a more appropriate COVID-19 response expenditure.
Okay, so thank you for that answer. And then finally, I'm going to ask this question and then let somebody else have a chance. Again, on page 440, kind of a small amount, but groceries budgeted in for $200 in 2021. Do we have, what is that going to be spent on?
Yeah.
And is that normal?
Madam Chair, actually, it is normal for the most part. Public safety is one of those departments that hosts a variety of meetings with outside agencies. In all honesty, when you want meeting attendance, you got to feed people. And that's basically what this budget line accomplishes, is getting attendance at meetings.
All right, well, I hope I get invited to one of those meetings. No. Okay, so at this point, I will recognize another member of the committee.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Oh,
Madam Chair.
Flagler Mitchell, you can go ahead.
Okay, Legislator Flagler Mitchell, I'll recognize you, sir.
Thank you so much. Through you to the administration, When you were speaking about the trunk system, it said that they were working with law enforcement. Have you had any conversations with the fire departments? And have the concerns of the fire department been addressed when concerning the trunk system? Through you to the administration.
Madam Chair, I know those have been ongoing conversations between public safety and the fire departments. Chief Tantillo or Jenny Verhagen, I'm sure can provide a better answer than I could.
Sorry, we had an unmute. I couldn't find the unmute. Okay.
Sorry about that, through the chair and legislator. So the fire service has been evolving with the trunk system, if you will, at a different pace than law enforcement. They completely went over to the trunk system on November 2nd. And I have Chief Fire Officer Shalava from the Fire Bureau. All the indications that we're getting from the majority of the fire services that we interact with is that it's been a relatively smooth transition, that the process is working well, and that we continually have the opportunity for feedback and evaluation from all of the fire services that are within the County of Monroe and that we interact with. And I'll just ask Chief Fire Officer Shalava to comment as well.
Thanks, Chief. Through the chair, that's correct. The county fire service with their transition on November 2nd, essentially has been a fairly smooth one to date. We've had a number of fires in the last 2 or 3 weeks where we've operated on the fire ground on the trunk system with no problems realized. We also have an operations work group that meets regularly. Our next meeting is scheduled 2 weeks from now. Really the outstanding piece from the fire service community relates to the city of Rochester's configuration and their tempo coming onto the system. And those conversations are ongoing, and I suspect they will continue to be for at least a little while longer as we kind of work through those issues.
Thank you, and through you to the administration. Have this system been tested in high-rise fires?
Through the chair, with respect to high-rise fires in the county fire service, the fire departments are going to plan to operate either on system, which is through the trunk system, or via the use of repeaters. And those both of those practices are incorporated into their standard operating guidelines. Each fire department, tests the system with respect to the target hazards in their community, whether it be a high-rise, whether it be a commercial building. And so those activities continue to be ongoing, and each fire department are handling those responses and those configurations based on the structures that they're responding to.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chairwoman, to the administration, on page 348 of the budget, and major objective, the dot where it say continue to participate in the Project Exile. I just wanted to ask some questions on that through you to the administration. First, do we allocate any money to Project Exile?
Madam Chair, there are no specific appropriations in this budget for a Project Exile contract.
Thank you. And this to you, to the administration. What's the breakdown by race on the people who have been charged with Project Exile?
Madam Chair, that's probably not a question I can answer.
I agree. I don't think if it's not addressed in the budget, with all due respect, legislator, I don't think that we should be asking these questions. Those are questions that you probably should ask the people that run Project Exile, Camp Good Days and Special Times.
It was mentioned in the budget, though.
Yes, this, through you, Madam Chairwoman, it is mentioned in the budget that we're gonna continue, using, Project Exile. And so
Can you,
I
can you
think
give us a page number or where it's noted? Please?
Page 348, and actually 347 is gonna continue to participate in Project Exile. And the major objective on 348, and about the fifth bullet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it said we're gonna continue to participate in this program. It's in the budget, so I don't know why we can't ask questions.
No, okay, so at this point, I guess that the appropriate person to ask would be somebody from the district attorney's office.
And as they're
I
around.
believe, is somebody from the district attorney's office online?
This is Dawn Staub from the District Attorney's Office.
Hi, Dawn.
Yes, Ms. Staub.
If you are looking for specific statistics in regard to Project Exile, I can follow up with you in writing on those. The references to Project Exile in the budget are under the goals and objectives, and as Mr. Franklin indicated, there isn't a specific appropriation for that program.
And well, why would we mention it in the budget? Through you to the administration, why would we mention it in the budget if we don't have no appropriation?
Through the chair, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration.
Thank you.
Through the chair, because it is a program that the District Attorney's Office has been affiliated with for a number of years.
Yeah, thank you. And through you to the administration, if we have been affiliated with it, shouldn't we have some type of numbers that we can see if it's working, if we should tie ourselves to programs such as this manner, if this, whatever the issues may be, could be racially biased. We want to look at that. And if it's in the budget, I think it's appropriate to ask these type of questions to the administration, through you, Madam Chair, to the administration.
Through the chair, as I indicated in my initial response, I'm more than willing to provide a response to you in writing.
I appreciate that. So I'm gonna ask the other questions so you can have them down there, respond back as well. And if you can answer some, please answer them for me if you can. I really appreciate it. So, you know, the first thing was the breakdown by race, and then the second is what was the demographics, the location of the folks who have been charged with Project Exile. And then this question to you, and to you, Madam Chair, to the administration. Do you believe that Project Exile worked?
We can have the district attorney's office follow up in writing. It also might be appropriate to talk to somebody from the federal government, because actually those cases go to the federal government. They don't stay with the district attorney's office.
Okay, thank you. Once again, in the budget, it said that we're going to continue to work with this program. I'm just asking, do the DA believe that Project Exile worked? Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration.
Through the chair, I am not at liberty to, I think that's a question best answered by the district attorney, and I will respond to your request in writing.
Okay, thank you, really appreciate that. And through you, Madam Chair, to the administration, can she also put in there what is her basis or the statistics that prove if it works or not. We just want to know if this is working, and is it even appropriate for us to continue to partner up if it's not working. I mean, we don't have no numbers, we don't have no statistics. It's in our budget in two different spots, and we have nothing to go by except pretty much saying, okay, let's go with it. So I mean, I will feel comfortable if you can get us those answers so that we can have those answers. Please, just through you, Madam Chair, to the administration.
Any further questions, Mr. Flagler or Mitchell?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Just through you
thank you.
to the administration. When we look at page 310, the crime lab. Why was there a decrease in the charges to other governments?
Madam Chair, these charges to other governments are our intermunicipal agreements with the surrounding counties. The crime lab had the ability to perform analysis at a regional level. The number of counties for which we enter into an IMA has greatly come down. Going into 21, we're looking at the counties of Genesee and Livingston, and this would be the approximate value of those two IMAs. We can do work for other counties not on contract. It would be more a la carte service upon their request. And I know a lot of the other counties have been significantly reducing the amount of evidence sent to our own crime lab.
Thank you. Just to you, to the administration, on page 295, under the conflict defender. Why is there a dramatic decrease in the conflict defender funding?
Oh, Madam Chair, this kind of happens a lot with the conflict defender and the public defender's office. I kind of touched upon in my presentation that New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services provides funding on an annual basis. This legislature, the full legislature, will see in the coming months referrals to accept OILS funding, both for what I'll call the base funding agreement, which at the county is like $1.5 million, of which a portion is for the conflict defender. And separately, there will be a referral to accept funding related to the state's lawsuit, the Harold Herring lawsuit. So that's why the amended budget for 2020 appears so much higher than what we are proposing for 21. It's all grant related.
So just so to understand it, that we're waiting pretty much on grants to come in from the state and federal government through you, Madam Chair, to the administration?
Madam Chair, these would be not federal, but all state funding. These allocations come to us in 3-year increments. I should add, Madam Chair, because this has come up before, when the county receives multi-year grants, as we receive from state OILS, we have the ability within SAP to program the second and third years of those grants directly into SAP. So they populate, or they actually modify the appropriate year's budget. So when this legislature accepts the 3-year grant, we program each year's worth of funding into SAP in advance.
Okay, so it's basically 3 years through you, Madam Chair, to the administration. It's like a 3-year cycle, is what you're saying?
So very interesting, Madam Chair. I'm not sure why the state runs it this way. Every single year, we get a 3-year funding allocation. So that means every year we have 3 concurrent grants running. I'm not sure why the state does it that way. Kind of an interesting twist.
Right, thank you. And I one more question before I let somebody else go. On page 292, it said the Department of Public Safety personnel will assess criminal justice reform initiatives and community engagement opportunities to expand our ability to work with residents and community partners on contemporary criminal justice issues. Can you tell us what does that mean, or what does that look like?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll definitely have to turn this over to Chief Tantillo.
Through the chair, since I've joined the county, one of the things that we have continued to move forward with is a number of community engagement efforts with various community groups and stakeholders. Currently, I participate in 3 different police reform best practices committees with faith leaders, community stakeholders, organizations, and we want to continue to build upon what the recommendations of those committees are and involve the Department of Public Safety as much as we can with community engagement and building that public trust and confidence in every aspect of what we do here in the county.
Thank you. And just a follow up on that, with those, through you, Madam Chair, the administration, with those partnerships that you're creating, is there a plan for diversifying the public safety area of the county? Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration.
Madam Chair, one of the initiatives within the budget is to establish an internship program. My goal is to have a working partnership with MCC as well as any other educational institution, but considering the close proximity of MCC, considering its public safety footprint in our community, and the ability to work with their faculty to identify individuals to participate in internship, and then establish, if you will, the opportunity for these individuals to earn their degrees and consider the county for employment, and to be able to have those interns here to earn credit, as well as an opportunity to work in a summer, if you will, paid internship program, to be able to build our connection with communities of color.
I really appreciate that, definitely. And this, more questions keep coming. I'm almost done, I promise you. Just through you to the administration, I'm excited to hear that. How much funding will go into that?
Well, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, with this particular budget, there's been $20,000 allocated for the internship program. We anticipate that we'd be able to accommodate 4 interns in a paid position, but we also recognize that throughout the entire school year, we'd be able to have those individuals participate in their classroom studies or their accredited internship program. So we may have as many as 10 or 12 through the course of the year. And the other thing, this is the first year that we are doing this. So this is an initiative that I hope will have positive results, and I would be able to then demonstrate those results to this honorable body for an increase in funding with that. But I've got to give you proof that this is working.
Okay, thank you. And that 20,000 for 4 individuals, what will they be making for the internship? Is the internship year round? Is it only that semester? How does that money pan out? How much and for how long? Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration.
Through Madam Chair, this is a paid internship program over the summer that I'm envisioning to be a 10 or 11-week paid internship program. Being a former intern myself from MCC, I know that during the college year that we would be recruiting individuals to participate in a internship program where they would not be paid, but have the ability to earn their college credits.
Okay, thank you. And if everything was to go perfectly fine, you find the right individuals, what bureaus would be involved in the areas in which they can go into? Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration.
Through Madam Chair, I'm sorry, Legislator Wagner Mitchell, did you say what areas would they be working in?
What bureaus, yeah.
Yes, yes, through you, Madam Chair, the bureau.
Yeah, our goal is to devise a plan that would have them working and experiencing the work of every division within public safety. So they could be working for a period of time with probation. They might go out to the training academy. They could potentially be involved with the Monroe County Lab. So what I'd like to be able to do with the program is work with our team and have the interns select 4 or 5 of the divisions that they're interested in so that they can pursue these opportunities. As we know, forensic science is a very popular item, I think, with many young people as far as getting involved in the forensic science aspect of it. So one intern may wish to be at the lab for 4 or 5 days, where perhaps another intern would say, I'd rather be out at the training academy or at the probation department. So to try and fit the internship opportunity with what their goals are for future employment.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And how will the individuals how would you recruit these individuals into college? What is the process? How will an organization, an individual become involved in this effort? Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration.
Madam Chairman, right now, since this is our first initiative, we're partnering with MCC and utilizing opportunities at the college to be able to set up information sessions, an information table, visiting classrooms. Again, I don't always want to bring up my prior employment, but certainly when I was the chief of the Irondequoit Police Department, I spent a great deal of time at MCC recruiting interns, if you will, hoping that they would consider this agency I work for as a potential employer, building that relationship with these, if you will, typically younger individuals. So I have a great relationship with the MCC faculty, and they've been very gracious with hosting community forums, information opportunities, as well as classroom visits. And I can see many of the current experts in the public safety department enlarging that guest appearance, if you will, at MCC. And we're just using that as a pilot program, so I don't want you to think that's the only higher education institution we're going to work with. We will certainly expand that. And I think once people see how successful it is, they will be knocking on our door.
Awesome. You answered a question that came up in my mind about expansion. But one more thing, back to how much funding they will get. The 20,000 for individuals. How would that come out to be in the time that they're in the program? What is it? $14 an hour, $15 an hour? What is the incentive? How much will these individuals be receiving while they're in this program? Through you to the Madam Chair, to the administration.
Madam Chairman, or through you, Madam Chairwoman, sorry. How about this through the chair? I'm safe that way. But we would be looking at a $14 or $15 an hour allocation that could potentially shrink the amount of time that they're here with us. But one of the things I have found with young people is, and again, I did pilot this program at the Irondequoit Police Department, is once the paid position was over, they still wanted to come back and learn. And learning is the key to the success of this program.
Gotcha. Thank you. I thank you for those questions. I'm gonna let somebody else get in for a little bit. I do have more, but I can hold those to the side for a minute. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for allowing me.
Thank you.
To get some of my questions.
Thank you. I appreciate your question. At this time, I'd like to recognize, I believe Legislator Turp had chimed in. Can you add some questions, sir?
Yep, thank you. And a couple questions on page 442 and 443. So I'll give you a couple seconds to get there.
Thank you.
So on page 442, line 501000, appropriations, public safety legal representation, the salaries have all dropped from 2020 to 2021. So through the chair, can you explain this decrease in appropriations?
Yes, Madam Chair. The entire difference you see, it's about a $400,000 difference, is related to the New York State grants that will be received.
Okay. I have a feeling that's going to be the same on some questions with the public defender when I get there. But all right, section 501055. This is something I saw throughout the budget as a whole. Mandatory training has dropped dramatically. In this specific section, it drops from 29,500 to only 1,500, which is an extreme drop. Can you explain why the drop?
Madam Chair, the 2020 amendment budget does include $28,000 in change for mandated training. I imagine this appropriation will be amended when that oils grant comes through.
Okay. So we expect to have about the same amount based upon the grant we're going to be applying for?
It's a reasonable expectation, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right. Same page, 504-285. This, I have a couple questions on this in a couple different sections. Computer equipment is going from $141,861 to zero. Can you explain the difference?
Madam Chair, that is their caseload management system. It is entirely reimbursable by the oils grant funding. It was about, 141 grand.
Okay. So there was a new system that we're not going to have to spend that money anymore. Is that what you're saying?
No, Madam Chair, it was a system implemented, I think, 2015 or maybe 2016. We do spend money each year maintaining licensing and maintenance, and those costs are eligible to be reimbursed by the grant. So you'll see the appropriations go up when that oils grant funding comes in.
Okay. Next page, 443 through the chair. Travel appropriations. Now, you kind of went over this a little bit. You were doing the budget when it was in the summer and before the surge. So it's budgeted for $6,500 for conferences. So let's say these funds are not spent. Where do you expect the $6,500 that is budgeted to go?
So, Madam Chair, travel is one of the few items that are in its own budget control. So even though it's grouped with all other contractual services, the budget control is on that line. It really can't be spent on something else. If there is going to be no travel in 21, this budget line will either go unused and expire at the end of the year, or if we have to scrape together appropriations for appropriate COVID-19 response actions, we may transfer these appropriations for that particular response.
And then through the chair, that would be the same for every line of travel, that it can't be used for some other place?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Same page, 443. Let me see here. Transportation and parking is budgeted for $3,460. Can you explain what this is being spent on?
Yes, Madam Chair. This really is emergency bus passes. It's the Ticket to Ride program. We also do park several vehicles for the Alternatives to Detention. I'm sorry, that's the wrong acronym. We do park several probation vehicles in the Civic Center garage, so the passes are paid for out of that line.
And through the chair, who would be using these emergency bus passes?
Those would be probationers, Madam Chair. They are provided, the Ticket to Ride program was developed basically to take away an excuse of probationers for missing court appointments.
Gotcha. I like that. Anything to make it easier. Okay. And I think that's my last question for right now through the chair. Agency contracts are appropriate at a 20% reduction from 2020 to 2021. while most performance measures related to intake are projected to rise. So we're asking for a 20% reduction, even though intake are projected to rise. So through the chair, how do you reconcile the added intakes with the less need for contracts? Through the chair.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, through the line agency contracts?
Let me see here.
Because I do see only $5,000 is included in the 2020 amended budget, and that was related to the grants, the oils grants. The request going into 21 is just a little less, 866, almost 867,000. So it's
I
pretty
think
much
he's
tracking.
referring to, Mr. Franklin, to the appropriations on page 443 as they apply to public safety and probation in particular. Tools.
So I'm looking at that page.
Okay, you're
Yeah,
not seeing it?
Through the chair, I would say I'll come back to that. Let me look through my notes and try to clarify on that. I'll cede my time to another legislator for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Legislator Lamar?
thank you very much. I just have a few questions for the Sheriff's Department. What is the status of the STAR program?
Madam Chair, we do have Jennifer Curley on the line, I noticed, from the Sheriff's Office, who may be able to answer this question.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
What is the status of the STAR program?
This is under Sheriff Brown. We're going to answer that. We have I'm going to answer that question, Jen.
Thank you.
About the STAR program out at the Maloney STAR Academy.
Yes,
Yes.
through the chair, Under Sheriff.
Through the chair.
Yep, sorry about that. Through the chair, the Maloney STAR Academy right now has been closed because of COVID. We're really looking at ramping back up our programming and starting downtown at the Monroe County Jail and really getting some of that programming back going. Obviously, with everything going on with COVID and possibly going to Orange, still trying to figure that out where we are right now. We're having to work around those obstacles about who can get in the jail or not. But our goal really is to get that program back up and running starting in January, the end of December, and then
Kind of low.
continuing as we move out to the Maloney STAR Academy as things improve with COVID, with the vaccine and all of that. So we are moving to try to accomplish it where we are downtown right now to get it going back again. It's just a matter of it's hard to get everybody into the jail at this point.
Thank you.
Sheriff, if there's a possibility that you could get closer to your microphone, you're coming in very weak on a weak signal. Thank you, sir.
Through the chair, 10-4.
Thank you. And through the chair to the administration, is the facility currently being used as a COVID-19 confinement center?
Through the chair, no, it is not right now.
Okay, thank you very much. I have some, through the chair, I have some other questions for the District Attorney's Office. And so through the chair to the administration, on page 344, objectives and accomplishments relate to diversity and inclusion training and a diversity work group. What is the diversity breakdown within the District Attorney's Office?
Through the chair, I actually just completed an MWBE requirement for one of our grants, so I would be happy to share that with you. It'll give you the specific breakdown. I wouldn't want to go off the top of my head at this moment.
Okay, thank you. And through the administration, through the chair to the administration, does the District Attorney's Office believe that training the department on diversity is enough to address the diversity concerns?
Through the chair, could you rephrase the question? I'm not understanding what you're looking for.
Okay, so through the chair, um, the training that is being proposed through the district attorney's office on diversity, how will that, what type of impact will that have on um, the current people or the current staff that's in the district attorney's office now?
Through the chair, 2021 will actually be the third year of annual diversity training. We recently completed a session approximately a month ago, and then there was another diversity training back in 2019.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Just a few more questions, Madam Chair, and this is for the Public Defender's Office. How can we change the image of the Public Defender's Office related to complaints that we've received pertaining to the lack of public defender responses to clients, and how we can work towards lesser plea bargains?
Madam
The
Chair,
administration.
Madam Chair, Tim Donaher from the Public Defender's Office, if I may answer.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Donaher.
Sure. Thank you, legislator. Well, it starts in a number of ways. I mean, anytime any legislature receives a complaint from a constituent regarding a lack of adequate services for the Public Defender's Office, I would hope that you would reach out to me directly so that I can address that. I guess I'm not sure what you're asking as far as the plea bargaining question. So could you ask that again? I'm not sure I got it all.
Thank you, Tim. Through you, Madam Chair, to Tim, I guess I'm asking, how can we do a better job at servicing the people that come through there, so we are not bogged down with the people who are alleged to have committed a crime, pleading to maybe crimes that they haven't done, or to crimes that they haven't really done. We just want to make sure that we are servicing this community in a way where we're not bogging them or putting them into a pot where they're taking pleas for crimes that they may not be guilty of.
Through the chair, that's an excellent question. And I think that what you're going to see with the increase in state grant money and a dedication of enhanced resources for the Public Defender's Office, a much more holistic model of representation will be afforded to our clients. And by that, I mean, we'll be adding, of course, additional attorneys to reduce our caseload so we can spend a greater time on each case. We're also going to be adding additional investigators. Moving forward, assuming that the state grant money continues, we'll also be creating a social work bureau to provide, as I said, more holistic representation to clients, to assess those clients for their social determinants of health, to try to reduce recidivism rates. So, obviously, I used to say years ago when I was talking to community groups that, there were 3 public defender offices in Monroe County, and we were probably the third worst, because of our resources weren't where they needed to be. The best, of course, was the federal public defender's office, because they were significantly resourced compared to, our office. But with that increased funding with Arel Herring, I think you're going to see, as I said, much greater resources afforded to the PD's office. And that will translate into, much better representation for all of our clients, and a concomitant decrease in those people who are taking pleas because they want to avoid prison time, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Donaher. And just one more question through you, Madam Chair, to the public defenders or to the administration. I guess we never really ask this question, and I just want to be frank about it. What does the public defender's office need from this legislative body to conduct a holistic approach to reimagining criminal justice reform and reimagining what the public defender's office can do or wants to do in order to do a better job at servicing this community?
Through the chair, I appreciate why you're asking and what's behind that question. This body has been very good in the past in accepting both grants as well as requests to add staffing to the Public Defender's Office so we can enhance the services to our clients. And I would ask that this body continue their generosity in accepting those grants and adding those positions. I also would like to point out that there is a funding need in the family court side of the office. I know that oftentimes when the Public Defender's Office is mentioned, it's mentioned in the context of the criminal justice system, which of course is exceedingly important. But we also have a family law bureau that represents clients in family law matters. And we'll be looking to obtain a state grant that had previously been rejected by a previous administration, that I would hope that if we're able to obtain that grant award, that perhaps this honorable body would accept that grant to enhance the services we can provide our clients that are facing what we call parental termination cases. But as I've said, I'm very, very thankful that both this body and this administration has been very, very good about working with the Public Defender's Office to add staffing and accept those grant resources we're being provided. And I do believe that it's translating into better representation for our clients.
Thank you. I'm sorry, just one more question through you, Madam Chair, to the administration. Tim, do you think that your department would benefit from social workers from the FIT department?
Through the chair, well, we would absolutely benefit from social workers.
Okay.
That is a given. Because social workers, if you look at models that are based on a more holistic representation in New York City, really result in a reduction, not only an improvement in the client's lives, but a reduction in recidivism. There's a direct benefit to employing social workers, and by matching clients with programming that will eliminate or at least lessen those deficiencies in their lives that lead to potential criminal behavior. So I do agree that we need social workers. The source of those social workers, I mean, we can have a further discussion about that.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chairwoman?
All right, thank you. Is that Legislator Flavia Mitchell?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to ask further questions?
Yes, ma'am. Through you to the administration. This morning, the Black and Asian Democratic Caucus put forth some budget priorities. And in the priorities, we included, parity between the public defender and the district attorney. Do you believe that parity can help keep the caseload down on the public defender side for us to have better response? Through you to the administration, Madam Chairwoman.
Through the chair, certainly parroting and funding, it's admittedly a complicated issue because the Public Defender's Office does handle cases the District Attorney's Office does not. But certainly that enhanced funding that we're receiving, I don't think anyone can dispute there's a direct correlation between funding and quality of representation. Absolutely.
Thank you. And just to you to the administration, when we were looking in the budget, it looked like there is almost or a little bit over 2 million difference between the public defenders and the conflict defender. And we also see that the county give more support to the district attorney. Can you explain that why it's that way? Through you, Madam Chairwoman, to the administration.
Through the chair, in fairness to the district attorney's office, obviously we only handle a certain percentage of the cases that the district attorney's office prosecutes. We probably do on any given year 70% of the cases that the district attorney prosecutes. And then there are cases that, although are assigned to the public defender's office, we have to send to the conflict defender's office because they're what we call a conflict case. There's an ethical issue that precludes us from providing that representation. there's always a healthy debate in both offices, and Ms. Dorley and I have a friendly debate. Is it harder representing a person accused of a crime, or is it harder to prosecute? And I don't think anyone really has the answer to that, except to say that public defenders and conflict defenders, we have a client in every case. The district attorney's office doesn't have a complainant in every case. There are many crimes that they'll prosecute where there is no complainant or victim in the case. So in every case, we have an obligation to meet with clients. So in that sense, I make an argument that our cases tend to be more time consuming, and because clients have they have a right to know what's going on with their case and to meet regularly with their attorney. So in that sense, I think that the funding that we're receiving from New York State is very, very much warranted and overdue.
Thank you. And just to you, Madam Chairwoman, to the administration, do the public defender, conflict defender sometime outsource cases to other lawyers when the workload is high? Or caseload is high, I'm sorry, through you, Madam Chairwoman, to the administration.
Well, through the chair, Tim Donaher. Well, and I don't mean to speak for the conflict defender, Mr. Funk, but the answer is yes. There are only certain types of cases the conflict defender can handle. Those cases would be city court conflict cases, or family court conflict cases, or appeals conflict cases. If the conflict case is a town or village court case or a felony case, those cases are transferred to what are called the assigned counsel program, which are private attorneys that are paid a hourly rate by the county to provide that representation.
Okay, good. So through you, Madam Chair, to the administration, are there any minority lawyers who are getting some of these caseloads when your caseload is high? Through you, Madam Chairwoman of the administration.
Through the chair, Tim Donaher, anecdotally, I'd say the answer is yes, but I defer to Mr. Funk as to who's on what we call the assigned counsel panels.
Thank you. And when you say assigned counsel panels, through you, Madam Chair, to the administration, when you say assigned counsel panel, that's a panel of who?
Through the chair, those are panels of attorneys that have been approved by the assigned counsel program to handle those types of cases. So you have to file an application, and Mr. Funk, of course, could explain this better than I, but file an application to be on what we call the assigned counsel panel. And then those cases are, from my understanding, basically assigned on a rotating basis to everybody who's on the panel.
I see Mr. Funk is on the call. Would you like to answer that question, Mr. Funk?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Donaher gave an overview of the assigned counsel panels. We have a number of different panels based on the different qualifications of the attorneys that can handle those cases. We have, for example, 4 criminal panels. We have a panel specifically for cases where a defendant is facing life in prison. So homicides, predatory sex offense panel. Then we have a panel for the higher felonies, ABC felony panel. Then we have a felony panel that for lower felonies, D&E level felonies. And these are all ABC, D&E level felonies are based on the penal law definitions of different levels of felonies. And then a misdemeanor panel that handles misdemeanor cases in the city of Rochester and town and village courts. Then we have a family court panel and an appeals panel. So out of those 6 panels, we have we've had in the last couple of years, about 175 attorneys accept assignments over the course of those 6 panels.
Okay, thank you, and through you to the administration, thank you, Mr. Funk. Is those panels diverse? How many of those, do we have proper representation on those panels that can look at different lawyers or will have some type of voice at the table, just through you to the administration, Madam Chairwoman?
First, I would say that our panels, as Mr. Donner mentioned, are voluntary panels, and that there's an application process. So any attorney that wants to get on the assigned counsel panels will make an application to my office to get onto the panel.
Okay.
And we do have some diversity on our panels. I've never added up the numbers. I would say we probably have a ballpark would be 15 minority members on our panels, meaning African American, Hispanic, and Asian attorneys.
Out of how many for you, Madam Chair? How many panels?
Well, on all 6 of our panels, we have approximately, there have been 175 attorneys accept assignments over the last couple of years.
Now, through you, Madam Chair, to the administration, so the panel is the people who accept the assignments, or those are the people who choose the people who accept the assignments? Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration.
I'm sorry, legislator, can you repeat that? I missed part of what you said.
So the people on the panel, are they the people who select the lawyers who will be taking on the cases, or are they the ones who are the lawyers who take on the cases?
When I refer to panel members,
through the chair, Mr. Funk.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, sorry.
Through the chair, when I refer to panel members, I am referring to the attorneys that are willing to accept assignments of cases. I would also note that our assigned counsel attorneys get paid on felonies and family court and appeals $75 an hour and $60 an hour on misdemeanors, which is well below market value of attorneys' fees in the Monroe County area. But our attorneys are willing to accept assignments at those reduced rates. And through the chair, once an attorney is on a panel, we use a rotating list. So attorney A is at the top of the list. Attorney B is second on the list. Attorney C is third on the list. If we have an assignment that comes in, we will call attorney A. If he accepts the assignment or she accepts the assignment, they will then be assigned to that client. If attorney A does not accept that assignment, we then move to attorney B to see if they want to accept the assignment. And it's a continuous list. So when you accept an assignment, you go to the bottom of the list to work your way back up to the top of the list. And then we will call you again when you get back to the top of the list.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Funk, for giving us that answer. You know, just a quick comment on it. With there only being 15, I would like for us to consider a 2-list system, a minority list and a regular list, because if you're only 15 out of 140, or I'm sorry, 123 lawyers, it may not be well, you probably got a whole caseload of cases that you could get out, but I would like for y'all just to consider looking at a 2-list system for your minorities versus your regular list. You know, that's just a suggestion from me. And my and thank you again, Mr. Funk, through you, Madam Chair, to the administration. And just one last question to you, Madam Chair, to the Sheriff's Department. Do you believe that FIT would benefit the Sheriff's Department when we're talking about reimagining policing in Monroe County. Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration.
Through the chair, this is the undersheriff. So FIT is a tremendous benefit to the sheriff's office currently. And if we had more members out there with the sheriff's office, they would be a bigger benefit. So yes, FIT is a tremendous benefit to our office.
Thank you, thank you. You know, being a firefighter, I did 20 years, and you know, I see FIT as a organization that should be really with the sheriff department for many different reasons. One, because they will always have the professionals when it comes to mental health, as well as have protections on the other side of the sheriff department, but also be able to help out the sheriffs and the people on the scenes with their own personal issues. You know, I look at FIT as a special unit. Like on the fire department, we had Rescue 11, and that special unit went on all special calls. And I believe that, you know, this body should really consider sitting and talking about moving the FIT to the sheriff department. I think it would better serve the citizens and the social workers and counselors in that division can really help out throughout the whole Monroe County. So that's just a suggestion of mine. I thank you. That was my final questions. I'm done with my questions. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Flagler Mitchell. I appreciate that. Are there any further questions from the rest of the committee?
Yes, Madam Chairperson, can I speak up, please?
Yes, Mr. Alcoffer?
Yes, it is.
Recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Through the chair, I had a question here. Why, excuse me, on page 447, appropriations, public safety, communications, why is there nothing budgeted for professional services in 2021 while we have almost 3 million budgeted in 2019 actual and 1.5 million in 2020 amended?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Professional services on that particular line, 504-320, did represent our maintenance contract with Harris Communications. That contract has ended, and you will see, let me see, 1, 2, 3 rows above it, the appropriation for the maintenance of computer equipment. Maintenance of that system now has gone away from professional services and will be included going forward with maintenance of computer equipment. This really pertains to the radio infrastructure, server maintenance, other computer equipment associated with the communication system. But rather than have Harris do that maintenance, public safety communications technicians and our county IS department is taking over that responsibility.
Okay, very good. Another question for you, Mr. Franklin, and that's through the chair. On page, again, 447, appropriations, public safety, communications, provision of capital projects is budgeted for $1,090,000 in 2021. Through the chair, what is this funding being used for specifically?
Madam Chair, this particular appropriation item supports a couple different expenses. Public safety communications includes $40,000 for a replacement vehicle within the capital fund for vehicle replacement. They include $500,000 of this appropriation for their communications infrastructure replacement. And they include, at least in this budget line, $550,000 for the public safety communications equipment and device replacement. That 550 grand for equipment and device replacement would have been $250,000, but the department had asked to increase that in the 21 year to $550,000.
Okay, thank you. And again, let's stay on page 447. Through the chair, What space is being rented and what are the details of the agreements of such as the duration? Appropriations, Public Safety and Communications.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know it's called rental of space. This particular budget item is for our lease of the tower we have out in Wheatland. I don't have in front of me the expiration of that lease. That's something I can check into.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. And again, on page 447, through the chair, Appropriations, Public Safety, Communications. Travel is budgeted $3,000 in 2021 through the chair, with many conferences already canceled for 2021 due to the COVID. What are the planned uses for these funds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As of right now, none of the conferences, in this particular budget line is to allow for conference attendance out of town, the registration and the accommodations. If conferences go on as scheduled, it will be used for that. If conferences are canceled or scheduled to some future time, this appropriation will be either unused or, if needed, it may be requested to be transferred to a different expenditure item for an appropriate COVID-19 response action.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, on page 449, Appropriations, Public Safety, 9/11 Emergency Communications Equipment Acquisition in 2020 the amended budget was $1,500,000. Through the chair, can you explain what was purchased in 2020?
Yes, Madam Chair. This particular line in 2020 was the cost of the 911 phone system refresh or upgrade.
Okay. Through the chair, again on page 449, Appropriations, Public Safety, 911 Emergency Communications. Through the chair is the $20,900,000 budgeted for agency contracts in 2021 going to the city of Rochester for their partnership with the county?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's exactly what that appropriation is for.
Okay. And my last question for that, through the chair, on page 449, Appropriations, Public Safety, 911 Emergency Communications. Travel is budgeted for $4,000 in 2021. Through the chair, with many conferences already canceled for 2021 due to COVID-19, what are the planned uses for these funds?
Madam Chair, although we have not been told conferences have been canceled, if they are or otherwise rescheduled, this appropriation will sit unutilized or may be transferred to a different expenditure item for an appropriate COVID response action.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Franklin. Madam Chair, that's it for the time being.
Thank you, Mr. Alcoffer. I'll at this time recognize the next person that would like to ask questions.
Legislator Delahanty?
Yes, Legislator Delahanty, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Through the chair, can you provide the legislature with a breakdown of all positions that fall under this portion of the 2021 budget that are authorized, funded, and vacant? This breakdown should include each title and the corresponding budgeted amounts for salary, retirement, Social Security contribution, medical assurance, and dental insurance. Please also indicate the fund, department, and cost centers change for each corresponding position.
Madam Chair, we've had similar requests of that nature pretty much each year, probably since I've been CFO. I don't believe we've actually ever provided that information. Unfortunately, every time this question comes up about vacancies or position funding, every report we can produce for you is point-in-time data. And with our staff turnover in the county, that point-in-time data becomes obsolete very quickly. So we've always tended to shy away from providing that information.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Franklin, if we could open up to page 453. I'd like to talk about appropriations, public safety, mutual aid fire bureau. Mileage is budgeted for $4,000 in 2021. And I note that many employees with the division have take-home emergency vehicles. Through the chair, can you explain what employees are utilizing mileage reimbursements and for what purpose?
Madam Chair, yes, not all the individuals within the Fire Bureau have access to a take-home or county-owned vehicle. There are a number of per diem and part-time staff within the Fire Bureau who do respond on behalf of the Fire Bureau to active incidents, and they also may use their personal vehicles to attend training outside the Fire Bureau or for local meetings or regional conferences.
Okay. All right, thank you. And also on page 453, appropriations, public safety, mutual aid, Fire Bureau, the travel budget is $9,700. Through the chair, with many conferences already canceled for 2021 due to COVID-19, what are the planned uses for these funds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we've not been notified yet that the conferences that the staff seek to attend have not been canceled. If they are canceled or otherwise rescheduled, this appropriation can either sit here unutilized, or if appropriate, it may be transferred to another area to support a COVID-19 response action.
Okay. And moving up to page 455, appropriations, public safety, emergency management, total contractual services, and total supplies and materials decreases from 2019 through 2021. Through the chair, can you explain the reason for the decrease?
Thank you. Yes, Madam Chair. This is one of the areas in the county that is overwhelmingly supported by grants. Grants through New York State, Homeland Security, the radiological grant, and God, there's probably like 4 or 5 grants that support this area. So you'll see expenses, actual expenses for 19 running quite high. You'll see amended budgets higher than the 21 proposed, and it really is because of the grant funding that this office has received in the past and will receive into the future. The 2020 amended budget isn't as high as the 2019 budget. We pulled the amended budget data into our budgeting system, I want to say mid-September. So any grant that would have gone to the full legislature for acceptance after that date won't be reflected in 2020. So I know it makes the budget look funny in a number of areas, but that is why you see such a steady decline.
Okay. And also on page 455, appropriations, public safety, emergency management, the travel budget is $8,000. Through the chair, with many conferences already canceled for 2021 due to COVID-19, what are the planned uses for these funds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The travel for emergency management conferences may not be canceled. If they are or otherwise rescheduled, this appropriation will remain here unutilized, or if appropriate, we can transfer it to another area for a COVID-19 response action.
Okay. And Mr. Franklin, moving up to page 457 on appropriations of public safety, the Monroe County Crime Laboratory. Through the chair, can you explain why travel appropriations have decreased so much from 2019? And with so many conferences already canceled in 2021 due to COVID-19, what are the planned uses for the budgeted $1,500 in 2021?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, 2 points to that answer. the 2019 actual expenses, it's a little over $32,000, was almost entirely covered by grants received by the Crime Lab back in 19. Those grants will be coming to the full legislature soon for the Crime Lab. Given that a lot of travel is on hold and conferences have been canceled, the Crime Lab will have the opportunity not to budget some of that grants to support travel, but can put it towards other areas, such as their own lab equipment, supplies, whatever they deem appropriate. For the $1,500 that appears in this budget, if conferences are indeed canceled, this appropriation could remain here unutilized, or if appropriate, transfer to another expenditure area for a COVID-19 response action.
Okay. And Mr. Franklin, also on page 457, appropriations, public safety with the crime laboratory, through the chair, can you explain the total supplies and materials fall so much from 2020 to 2021?
Yes, Madam Chair. Back in 2019, the total expenses of a little more than $759,000 is almost entirely supported by grants accepted by the Crime Lab. The grants totaled about $697,000. Almost the same is true in 2020. Of the $513,000 expended, just over $374,000 is supported by grants. You will see those grants again come before this legislature. So the overall $110,000 and change will increase as those grants are accepted.
Okay. And through the chair, again, moving up to page 459, appropriations, public safety, and weights and measures. The travel budget is $1,000. And through the chair, with many conferences already canceled in 2020 due to COVID-19, what is the planned uses for these funds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If these conferences are indeed canceled or otherwise rescheduled, this particular appropriation can remain here unutilized. If appropriate, we can transfer it to another area for a COVID-19 response action.
Okay. And through the chair, can you please provide a breakdown of cellular telephone appropriations for the department, what the devices are being issued in the department, mobile Wi-Fi access points or cellular phones, and all personal titles of all within the department who are issued cell phone and mobile Wi-Fi access points?
Madam Chair, the answer is probably. I got to think of who maintains that list, whether it's public safety or county IS, but we will try and pull that together.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Franklin. I appreciate it. And I'd like to yield back to Madam Chair my time.
Thank you, Mr. Delahunty. At this time, I'll recognize Ms. Taylor. I think you had buzzed in.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Franklin, on page 450, appropriations, public safety, security. Through the chair, is any of the appropriated amount for commercial services with the security firm Securitas? And do you think we will continue to need the additional security guards for the COVID-19 screening well into 2021?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular appropriation for commercial services is our contract with Securitas. As the legislator noted, we do have additional security guards helping with our COVID-19 response. We actually are acquiring several, and I don't know what several is, I think it's a dozen, stand-up temperature scanners. They're basically like walk-up temperature scanners. The goal there is to alleviate the county budget of the additional personnel. It won't completely help, but having the walk-up scanners can help alleviate the additional costs we're incurring for the security guards. Certainly not one for one, because they are performing other duties as well, but that is one of the goals.
Thank you. On page 452, appropriations, public safety, central police maintenance, the computer equipment is budgeted for $310,000 in 2021. Can you explain the reason for this requested amount?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, the big component of that is for the records management system that was acquired and being implemented in 2020. However, this appropriation line also covers computer and technology systems such as TrackStar, our AirLink management software, and it also includes the maintenance on those for software updates as they become available.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair, Mr. Franklin, on page 452, appropriations, public safety, central police, and cellular phones is budgeted for $320,000 in 2021. Can you explain what these funds are used for?
Madam Chair, this particular appropriation is for the air cards that go into the police MDTs, the mobile data terminals in their vehicles.
Okay, one more question through the chair on page 452, the appropriations, public safety, central police. Can you explain the agency contracts are going to, who the agency contracts are going to?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular appropriation line funds the tuition we pay to MCC for law enforcement academies. It also provides a firearms instructor. We contract with, we have an IMA with the city of Rochester. RPD provides the firearm instructor. We also have a firing range, it's the Rush Range. So there's a $33,000 contract for the Rush Range as well.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. I have a couple questions, Madam Chairman or Chairwoman, on the general funds. Through the chair, does the 2021 proposed budget allocate any cash capital for the sheriff's office projects? And if so, why was the decision made to use cash capital instead of additional debt service?
Madam Chair, our budget for 2021 does include a cash capital contribution from the sheriff's office to the capital budget. It is for the replacement of sheriff's office vehicles, prisoner transport, road patrol vehicles. They have a variety of vehicles. I believe I might have mentioned in my presentation, the 2020 budget had another appropriation. Cash capital was the $1 million for the jail mainframe project. You know, I hound a lot of the departments a lot to keep their spending down in these budget requests, and the sheriff's office requested to, you know, as a measure to stay within targeted spending, remove the $1 million. Both of those, part of the question was why? What was behind the decision? With respect to sheriff vehicles, the period of probable usefulness for a sheriff's vehicle is 3 years. Period of probable usefulness, PPU, that's the amount of time we're allowed to borrow. But the sheriff's office budgets for the replacement of vehicles every single year. And it's roughly the same dollar amount. It can range anywhere from 1.4 to 1.6 million. But rather than borrow every single year of the rough dollar amount, if we do that, it's only within 7 or 8 years that the annual debt service starts to exceed the planned spending. So we worked with the sheriff's office a couple years ago to stop borrowing money for the vehicles and convert it over to cash capital. With respect to not budgeting the $1 million for the jail mainframe, we had put $1 million in their budget. I think in 2019 might have been the first year. That was a hedge, kind of trying to get ahead of the cost of the jail replacement project. At that time, there were options. It could be a $45 million project, an $85 million project, or a $125 million project. So by putting $1 million in the budget each year until we were ready, that would provide funding in cash that we could put towards construction. We wouldn't have to borrow quite as much. I know it's a drop in the budget, a drop in the bucket, but at the time, every little dollar helped. The sheriff's office has or will soon enter into a contract with a design firm. With bail reform, the sheriff's inmate population has come down. It remains to be seen exactly where the average population might settle. So this consultant that the sheriff has or will be contracting with will help them refine their overall master plan for what needs to be in a jail.
Okay, on page 475, that's the appropriations for the sheriff's and the administrative appropriations for salaries, which is 501000. It dramatically increased from the 2020 amended amount of $1,271,019 to $1,602,193 in 2021. Through the chair, is this increase the result of pay raises or new hires?
Madam Chair, this appropriation does include increases for contractual pay raises. It also includes funding for annual step increases. But the sheriff's office is in terms of staff, one of the larger departments within the county. I think they have over 1,000 FTEs. They also have a lot of bureaus and divisions. So really, for the most part, what you see in this appropriation increase is some internal movement of police officers from within different divisions that are coming over to the administration.
Okay, also on page 475, professional service item line is budgeted for $55,000 in 2021. Through the chair, can you explain what this spending plan entails?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Professional services, about $55,000. Most of that is related to media ads regarding safety, but it also includes professional service review of the internal affairs cases.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Franklin. I have one more question, and that is on page 477. It includes appropriation, the sheriff, and the civil bureau. Rental of equipment has remained relatively flat for several years. Through the chair, what equipment is being rented, and if used continuously, why does the county not purchase instead of continuing to rent?
Madam Chair, this is, this particular line really supports the rent of a postage, Pitney Bowes postage machine. That technology from Pitney Bowes changes quite frequently. And it's actually, this is one of those items where I would rather rent the postage machines than buy it outright.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Those are all my questions, Chairman Boyce.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Does anybody else have any further questions for the administration at this time?
Chairwoman Boyce, I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask Mr. Franklin, okay?
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Elkoff, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Franklin, on page 477, appropriations, sheriff, the Civil Bureau, there's one line item entitled clothing allowance and another entitled clothing and still another entitled law enforcement uniforms. Through the chair, can you explain the difference in each of these items? Purchased between each of these items, please?
Actually, Madam Chair, I probably will need the undersheriff or another budget, sheriff's office budget staff to answer that particular question. I can tell you what they're for. Clothing basically is out of our collective bargaining agreements for deputy uniform accessories, whereas the law enforcement uniforms themselves are their the dress blues they have and their body vests.
Okay, so are they, through the chair, are they different uniforms for different functions, Mr. Franklin?
Again, if the undersheriff wants to jump in, but basically,
I can answer.
okay, please do.
This is Under Sheriff Brown. So in the Civil Bureau, they have, they do a lot of work when they're not in uniform, which is why they have a plain clothes allowance, because they're not wearing a full uniform as they're going out doing some of their civil duties. But they also are at times, especially with everything going on this year, are in uniform. So they also have a uniform allowance that we have to pay for also. So that they have the ability to wear a uniform when we need it, but the majority of their time is spent not in uniform, which is where they get the allowance from the contract.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that answer. My final answer on page 477, appropriations, sheriff, appropriations for temporary help. It fell from 2020 amended budget of 56,200 to zero in 2021. Through the chair, can you explain the reason for this decrease, and will this decrease have any effect on the quality of service?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In 2020, this budget appropriation line included 2 part-time deputies in the Civil Bureau who will not be returning. If the undersheriff would like to tag team on that, please.
That's exactly what it is. There's just 2 part-time deputies that we haven't filled in quite a while in the Civil Bureau, so we actually just cleaned up the books and took them off the books and didn't fund them.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And again, Mr. Franklin, I have one final question, and again, through the chair. It's on page 477, appropriations, the sheriff, the Civil Bureau. The travel budget is $5,000. Through the chair, with many conferences already canceled for 2021 due to COVID-19, what are the planned uses for these funds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we have not been notified that these conferences or seminars may have been canceled or otherwise rescheduled. Should that happen, this travel budget will either remain right where it is, unutilized, or if more appropriate, it can be transferred to another appropriation line for an appropriate COVID-19 response action.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Franklin. That is all, Madam Chairperson.
Legislator Delahanty.
Thank you, Mr. Elkoffer. I'll recognize Legislator Delahanty for further questioning.
Okay. Mr. Franklin, we're looking at page 478. And we're looking at appropriations for the sheriff and the Sheriff Police Bureau, and the appropriations for rental of space rises from, in 2020, amended of 715,940 to being budgeted to 924,186 in 2021. Through the chair, is this to account for the new lease with Galena Development for the B-Zone substation on Calkins Road in Henrietta?
Madam Chair, thank you. Yes, that does account for the majority of the increase. The sheriff moved into that new space kind of late 2020, and they knew that was going to happen. So the appropriation was a little less in 2020, whereas they're there for a full year in 21. So we have to account for that. So that is overwhelmingly the cause of that increase.
Okay. And also on page 478, for appropriations for the Sheriff Police Bureau, the travel budget is $82,969. What are the planned uses for these funds?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The travel. Thank you, Madam. I'm sorry, was that Under Sheriff chiming in?
Yes, if you want me to jump in here.
Absolutely, we can tag team. I mean, I know there is money budgeted for specific trainings, the FBI Special Investigations. They offer training in computer crime, SCUBA, Stop DWI, trainings in DARE program. I know if those trainings are put off or are rescheduled, these appropriations can remain here unutilized, or if appropriate, move to another expenditure area for a COVID-19 response action. I didn't mean to cut you off, Under. When I have a note, I like to just bark it out.
Yeah, this is Under Sheriff Brown, and Bob Franklin is always quicker. But we have a lot of schools and education that we have to do regardless. So even with COVID, we still had to do some training and get people to require training, especially for our specialty teams that include bomb, SWAT, SCUBA, hostage negotiation, those types of things. So those are really the big bulk of, they're really schools that our technicians have to go to, or our drone operators that are all part of that training budget. That still go on even with COVID. They figure out a way to still make them happen because there's certain certifications that you have to do a certain amount of training in a certain amount of time. Through the chair.
Thank you, Under Sheriff. Appreciate that. Mr. Delahunt, you have further questions?
Yes, I actually do. Going on to page 479, appropriations for the sheriff and the Sheriff Police Bureau. Appropriation for groceries is budgeted for $18,000 in 2021. Through the chair, what is being purchased and for what is the intended purpose?
Those are grocery items for our canine operators.
Okay.
And horses. Actually, not the operator, the actual canine itself. So.
All right.
So it's for
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Also on page 479 for appropriations, Sheriff Police Bureau, appropriations for recreational supplies is budgeted for $5,000 in 2021. Through the chair, what is being purchased and for what intended purpose?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know it's called recreational supplies, but it is not for deputy recreation. That is the line SAP pulls when we purchase marine. They have a marine navigational unit. So when we buy their mooring lines, other ropes and anchors, that's the line those commodities are driven to.
Okay. And on page 479, appropriations, Sheriff Police Bureau, the 2021 budget for landscaping and farm supplies stand at $9,500. Through the chair, what is being purchased and for what intended purpose?
The undersheriff can correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Chair, but that's really is the maintenance outside the 3 sheriff substations.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right, and thank you. I'd like to yield my time back to Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Delahanty. Are there any further questions from any other members of the committee?
Yes, this is Legislator Turp.
Legislator Turp, I'll recognize you at this time.
I'm not going to go back to my previous question, but I figured out through the chair to Mr. Franklin, when I was talking about the appropriations and contracts, I was looking at 2019, not 2020. That's why there was a big difference in my numbers. So that's where I was wrong on that. But take a look at a different page, page 481. If we take a look at professional services, line number 504320, in 2019, professional services were at 393,000. Last year, they dropped dramatically to 50,000, and now they're back up about double to 111. Why do we see, through the chair, why do we see a dramatic difference of this year compared to last year?
Again, the undersheriff can chime in if I misspeak. This particular line has appropriations to monitor our inmate health and process claims to the United States Department of Justice to house their inmates that we bring in through IMA. New for 2021 will include we call it MATS. It's medically assisted treatment. There's $60,000 appropriated for medically assisted drug treatment specialists within the jail for 2021.
Okay. And then if we move to page 486, I'm just trying to find the line item for you. Oh, it's a 505140. Just law enforcement uniforms. I'm seeing that dropping. Do you see a reduce in officers? Is that why we need less uniforms? Is there an explanation for that through the chair?
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'll ask Under Sheriff Brown if he can chime in. I mean, I know what it is, but as for the decrease, I'll need some help there.
A decrease in the number of staffing. It's just we looked at what we're spending and we're just trying to reel it in a little bit, but it is not due to a decrease in staffing. We added some uniforms in 2020 for, we tried to get a better uniform shirt inside the jail, but it gets so hot as they're in there. So we did that, but we're just trying to give an accurate guess for next year.
Madam Chair, I know there's often changes in these budget lines. The budget staff within the sheriff office often looks over the past 3 to 5 years. I do see 2019 actuals are only 145, and this is could very well be their attempt to better align the budget with the actuals they're experiencing.
Yeah, that through the chair, that makes sense. Trying to find, anecdotally, trying to find a different shirt that's better reminds me of a Seinfeld episode with Cotton in the Yankees. I'm not sure if you've seen that. It does make sense, especially as how hot the jail gets, to try to make sure they find a shirt that's more breathable. So I would not disagree with spending more money on that. I'm good at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turp. Anybody else from the chair in the committee would like to ask any further questions?
Through you, Madam Chair.
I'll recognize Legislator Roman at this time.
Yes. On page 292, can you please explain what the benefits will be of the computer-aided dispatch system scheduled for completion?
Madam Chair, if I could have perhaps Chief Tantillo, Jenny Verhagen, or Chris Fish chime in on that.
Good evening. Through the chair, this is Chris Fish. The new CAD system is a map-driven system. Our current one does not have the ability to track first responders and where they are as they're out in various incidents, as well as being able to give them route to directions and information on that. So it'll be a very large leap forward in technology for our first responder community, and allows that entire group of people now to actually share information in a much more seamless way as opposed to the current old system. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair. It was a little difficult and muffled to understand. You were saying that it would allow agencies to share information more seamlessly?
Through the chair, sorry, yes, our overhead speaker here. Yes, that is correct. Much more seamless interaction between agencies.
Okay, perfect, thank you. One more question for page 292. What planned activities will Weights and Measures use to enhance workplace safety?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular item is this particular objective for 21 is driving a purchase you'll see in the budget book under the division for Weights and Measures. It's a very labor intensive group of staff and the tasks that they perform. This particular item really relates to the inspection of gas pumps. There's probably just over 4,300 gas pumps that are inspected on an annual basis. Involves the lifting, carrying, otherwise moving 5-gallon gasoline and diesel provers so that they can make sure that when the pump says it dispensed a gallon of gas, that's what really came out. Those are quite heavy, and it has been shown that back strain is one of the leading causes of workplace injury. And what the group Weights and Measures is trying to do is maintain a good track record. So you'll see included in their budget the purchase of a $21,000 prover. It's basically, rather than carrying and lifting individual canisters, this prover slides in the back of a pickup truck and can mitigate the need to transport 5-gallon provers. So it's basically a preventative measure.
All right. Thank you very much. Outside of the questions I submitted and got responses to earlier, those were the only two. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Roman. Appreciate that. Any further questions from other people on the committee?
Yes, this is Legislator Tripp. I have like 3 more questions and I'm all finished. On page 472. Through the chair, we're looking at 501055 mandated training. I went all the way back to 2018. 2018 mandated training was 22,536. 2019, 19,441. 2020, 19,431. And mandated training for 2021 is budgeted at 0. Can you help me out with that, please, through the chair?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this particular line will be populated with the acceptance of New York State Oil's funding.
Okay, so I'm not going to ask the same question because salaries is, I'm guessing, the same thing as far as grant-wise.
It is, Madam Chair.
Okay. Through the chair, if we go to 504005, we're looking at travel. Now, this is not the same question through the chair you've been getting. This one's a little bit different because Public Defender Danaher suggested that travel outside was the key to reaching and attracting minority talent to the office. So seeing as how we're reducing the amount by 50% in travel, is this going to affect us in 2021 for recruitment of minority talent through the chair?
Madam Chair, I'm sure Mr. Donaher would like to chime in. This particular appropriation line has in the past been used for the Albany appeals. In 2020, there was additional $10,000 on this page, basically was grant funded from oils. But I'll let Mr. Donaher speak to the other issue in your question.
Through the chair, Tim Donner of the Public Defender's Office. Mr. Franklin's correct. In 2020, using year 2 of oils money, we added $10,000 in anticipation of our DEI officer traveling to attract people of color to the office. When we finalize the year 3 budget of Harrell Herring, that $10,000 will then be populated onto that line. So we would have those funds available.
So through the chair, on that same thread, are there other creative ways we're looking besides travel in order to bring in minority recruits? Seeing as how it looks like for the next 6 months, we're still going to be in a world of non-travel and COVID.
Through the chair, yes. A number of job fairs that had traditionally been in-person job fairs have moved online. I do anticipate the bulk of the public service job fairs that we would normally attend to attract people of color as either attorneys or support staff to the office, they occur in the fall of any given year. So I would anticipate that in 2021, if all goes well, that we will be resuming those live in-person events in the fall. But there are, of course, many other ways that we're undergoing recruitment, including, and I know this might sound funny, but simply emailing attorneys of color in New York City that do this work and seeing if they'd like to come up to Rochester to try to work in the public defender's office. And I've got to say, we've made some pretty good strides in the last several months on hiring people of color to the office, or at least identifying. I'm sorry to say that we've made some offers to persons of color, but frankly, we just couldn't meet their salary demands. But we are making some strides.
So through the chair to the public defender, if there was a line item in your budget that might help you increase greater recruitment of minority talent, would there be a specific area where you could see an increase in your budget that would see an increase in this recruitment?
Through the chair, right now, again, it's very tough to say because of the interplay with COVID and how it impacts our ability to actively recruit. I really am looking forward to our DEI officer going on the road. I think that her ability to attend in-person job fairs at historically Black colleges and law schools is really the most important thing that we can do. The online job fairs are okay, but they're just no substitute for the personal touch of having a face-to-face communication with either a law student of color or a staff person of color. And I think that's really what we're going to see, where we're going to see the greatest results. But you ask an interesting question, and I'm going to have to think more about that actually. And if anything else comes to mind, I'll certainly submit it in writing.
Okay. Yeah, that would be good to know if there was anything, any other way we could increase your budget just to try to help that. And then my last question is a combination of about 4 different lines of the maintenance in computer equipment, actually just 3 different lines, rental of space, and then computer equipment. 504285, 504340, and 505035. All of those have been dramatically decreased. I could gander to say that they would be based upon getting some type of a grant, but I'm not sure if that would fit in that space. Can you explain why those have all been dramatically decreased? Did we find some new type of place? Are they planning moving over to City Place? What is the main reason for those dramatic decreases in those areas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Believe it or not, yes, to a large extent, overwhelming extent, these reductions you see in the budget are because of OILS grant funding. We do know that the OILS grants are coming our way. When they are accepted, Mr. Donaher actually maps out, he probably already mapped out all 5 years of his Harrell Herring grant funding because he has reasonable estimations of what they will be in years 3, 4, and 5. And he's matched what he projects to be his costs in years 3, 4, and 5 against that grant funding. So there's always differences, but he's also pretty close each year. So the increases you see, the higher numbers in 2020 versus what you see for the 21 request is due to New York State grant funding.
Okay. I was hoping it was going to be a different answer because I didn't want to ask you that same question again. But I appreciate the answer. So through the chair, thank you very much.
At this time, I guess you're finishing, Mr. Tripp. Is that your last question?
That is my last question. Thank you.
All right. Is that your final answer? I just have a few questions with regards under the sheriff's budget. On page 728, with regards to the justification of a communications officer, one position, and increasing the group from 17 to 18.
Yeah, that's for our communications director for all that we're asking that person to do and all the extra hours we're trying to do. We're just trying to get her in line with other people in comparable positions so that we don't lose her, as we have in other positions that have been important to us.
Okay. Then on also on page 639, or not also, but on page 639, this is with regards to a revenue. Through the chair, that's me, I'm so sorry. Can you expand further about the $689,000 charges to the trust funds that were budgeted for 2021?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And of course, Under Sheriff can always chime in and otherwise tag team, but this particular revenue line is our charge to the trust funds. It's used to reimburse the salaries and benefits for the unit director in the jail, the rehab counselor, salary and benefits of their 6 drug and alcohol counselors. So they utilize primarily the jail commissary trust fund for that.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'm this one through the chair. Can you explain why the senior victim witness advocates, there's 3 positions, are being eliminated from the 2020 budget?
Through the
yes.
chair, this is the undersheriff. I can answer that. The positions are being changed because, once again, to try to bring their salaries equal to some of the surrounding towns, we were running into a position where we were losing them to the surrounding towns because they could pay quite a bit more. So we were just trying to change that position to make it more equal to what they're doing and the extensive work they're doing off hours and that type of victims of violent crime out at crime scenes. And so we were just trying to equalize that so we don't lose the people that are currently there.
So to further explain that, Under Sheriff, could you please, so where am I going to find that in the budget? What's their new titles going to be then?
Through the chair, I'll get you that, and I just got to figure out exactly what their new title is. So if their title is in there, and we're changing it. I'm not sure, Bob, if you know that answer to where it is in the budget, but just changing the title.
I knew 2 months ago, and I'm not sure I can come up with the answer tonight, so we'll follow up.
Okay, and then in addition, so then you eliminated some seasonal positions in the budget as well, 2 seasonal positions. Is there any particular reason why that?
Through the chair, all we did with them is we went from seasonal to part-time. We just changed how we were coordinating it so we could use them throughout the entire year and not just in the seasonal in the summer.
Okay, and can you explain your need for another office clerk, 1 position? And I guess it was not included in the 2020 budget. Is there a particular place where that person's needed?
Through the chair, hold on 1 minute.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, while the undersheriff is looking up information, I can confirm that the victim witness advocate's title will be crime victim specialist at a group 15.
Okay, thank you. With that title, if the under knows the crime victim specialist, that's funded greatly by New York State in grants. Is there something that, you know, they have to follow with regards to that funding that?
Through the chair, that is funded mostly through grants. I think 75% through grants. And this does meet that grant funding.
Okay. Thank you,
OVS
sir.
has approved this change.
Okay, great, thank you. And then the only other question, if you could find me the other answer about the office clerk one position. The other one was the FTEs in the sheriff's office are increasing. Can you provide a breakdown of the increase by division? Is that a possibility? Is it mostly retirement, or if you want to, can you get that to me sometime?
Through the chair, could you just clarify, you said a clerk one position we're adding? I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, that's what we're finding, is that there was something on the office, there was an additional office clerk one position added, and I didn't see it in the 2020 budget.
Madam Chair, and under, that's probably a position reclass, either an abolish, create, or a title change. I don't see the overall FTEs within the sheriff's office changing.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I'm just going to go to, I know we're going over time here, like way over time, but I guess with the budget, we can't be too careful. In the public defender's office on page 720, there's a total number of personnel that rose from 99 in 2020 to about 100, almost 130 in 2021. Well, the salary allocation on 472 appropriations, they're rising. Is this possible through the grant? Is that the grant again?
Yes, Madam Chair, the additional staff positions as required by the Harold Herring lawsuit settlement. And these positions and that settlement will fund the salary and benefits as well.
Okay. And the only other question I guess everybody, you know, probably wanted to know was through, is the public defenders looking to moving or expanding into the City Place building?
Madam Chair, that while there are conversations going on around that, we are currently leasing the executive building space and don't wish to divulge too many details in a public forum.
Okay. And I guess that's it for tonight for my questions. Any other further questions from any other committee members at this time? Hearing none? Okay. At this time, then we'll go on to the approval of the minutes. Yeah. Back to organized here. So at this time, we'll, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Now, you have the February 24th, 2020 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless you notify the clerk by the end of the day. So the next item on the agenda is new business. Mr. Clerk?
Referral 20-0343, acceptance of a grant from the United States Department of Justice Drug Enforcement Administration for the Drug Enforcement Administration Task Force.
Move it, Madam Chair.
Second.
By Legislator Turner, second by Legislator Elkauffer. Is there any questions with regards to this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, any opposed? None. Next item.
Referral 20-0344, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for the Operation Stone Garden Program and authorizing intermunicipal agreements with the towns of Greece, Arundequoit, and Webster.
Move it, Madam Chairwoman.
Move it by Legislator Elkauffer, second by Legislator Taylor?
Yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, any
Aye.
questions? I apologize. Any questions? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item, please.
Referral 20-0345, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for the fiscal year 2020 Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Grant Program.
Move it, Ms. Chairman.
Second.
Moved by legislator Taylor, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Any questions with regards to this? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Item passes. Next item on the agenda.
Referral 20-0346, amend Resolution 405 of 2017 as amended by Resolution 88 of 2020 and Resolution 254 of 2020 to authorize 2 one-year contract renewals with Prime Care Medical of New York, Inc.
Move it.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Alcoffer. Any questions on the floor?
Madam Chair, this is Legislator Turp.
Yes, legislator Chirp?
Through the chair, why wasn't this contract rebid? Why are we voting to authorize 2 additional one-year contracts?
Through the chair, it's Kim Hinckley, counsel to the sheriff. What originally happened with this one, we did the contract, we had a set term, I think 3 years with 2 additional one-year terms. Unfortunately, Office of Mental Health added a $50,000 grant in the spring of 2020, and it inadvertently erased or deleted our 2 one-year additions. So now we're going back in and getting those back in place.
Was that, is on the line, was that Mr. Simonelli?
No, it's Kim Hinckley.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can barely hear you. You guys, I think we're gonna have to get you new, speakers over at the sheriff's department.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, yes.
Okay. Mr. Tripp, do you have another question?
Yeah, through the chair. I mean, I might not have understood that. You might have to explain that a little bit more so I can understand it. We got $50,000 so that backed us back up. Can you go through that one more time for me, please?
Sure. When this originally went out to bid, Prime Care won the bid. At that time, we did a contract, I believe, for 3 years with 2 additional one-year extensions. In the spring of this year, the Office of Mental Health received a $50,000 grant for the MAP program. And unfortunately, they handled the referral at that time, and our 2 additional 1 years were scratched off at that point when they added the $50,000 in. So now we're merely coming back in and asking for those 2 renewals to be put back in, so we don't have to go back out and rebid this at this time. We can do the 2 additional 1 years.
And through the chair, I'm guessing it's because we like Prime Care for this job. That's why we don't want to go through the process of rebidding it through the chair.
Through the chair, absolutely. When we first did the contract, as I said, we did a 3-year, and we are very quite happy with how they've been doing. They did.
Okay.
They do a lot of extras for us.
Okay. Then through the chair, the referral says the contract will include COVID testing. How often will the inmates be tested for COVID?
Through the chair, any new inmate that comes into the facility is tested.
Then through the chair, what about current inmates? How often are they tested, or are they just tested if they're symptomatic?
They're only, through the chair, they're only tested if they're symptomatic.
Okay. And then if an inmate maybe you can answer this 2 ways. If somebody who coming into the jail tests positive, what is the process for that? Or if a current inmate tests positive, what is the process for that?
Through the chair, if an inmate comes into the facility and tests positive, they're immediately quarantined in a special area for 14 days or until they test negative. If an inmate it's already in the facility has symptoms and now tests positive, he'd also be isolated for the 14-day period.
And then as far as being isolated, what kind of, I'm looking for the right terminology, I guess, care, because obviously it wasn't their fault they were in isolation. what kind of care they given as far as food and electronics, same kind of care, same kind of necessities they would get if they were in the general public.
Yeah, through the chair, I probably should have phrased it that they're in quarantine. It's of course, because of our low inmate population, we do have many areas that are empty that we can put people in a quarantine area. And they're treated the same as any other inmate.
So through the chair, they're able to get like an iPad for education, or able to get different services just like they would if they were not in quarantine?
But through the chair, that's absolutely correct.
Okay, that's good. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
I just have one further question. Is there any visitation at this time at the jail?
Through the chair, we're trying to determine if we're in orange. If we're in orange, then visitation, according to the State Department of Corrections, has to stop. So we're just trying to determine that right now. We're right in the middle. So if we are part of the orange, then we're going to have to stop our visitation. So as of today, we had visitation, but as of tomorrow, the next day, I'm trying to confirm if we're in orange or if we're still in yellow, where the jail is located.
Okay, so there has been visitation going on. So if somebody comes to visit and is tested, is not, or screens positive, then what's your obligation? I'm sorry, you broke up.
Through the chair, could you repeat that?
Yeah. If somebody comes to visit and they are screened and they're symptomatic in some way, what then happens? They're turned away, but do you have any obligations to do anything with that information?
No, it would be like anyone else that would come to any other public building or Monroe County building when they get screened, and if they have a fever or if they have other symptoms, then we would just turn them away.
Okay, thank you so much. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes. Next item on the agenda.
Referral 20-0347, acceptance of a grant from New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services for the Third Consulate Appearance Program in the Office of the Public Defender.
Move it, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved by legislator Sharp, second by legislator Alcoffer. Questions on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes. Next item.
Referral 20-0348, authorize an intermunicipal agreement with the City of Rochester for a firearms instructor.
Moved by legislator Taylor, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Am I getting that correct?
You must be
hearing
muted.
anybody.
Second?
No, I'm not muted.
No, Sean may be.
All right, moved by legislator Delahanty.
Frank, and then I thought I heard Kathy.
All right. This is challenging. When I don't see your little buttons light up, I'm challenged by that. All right, we'll move it by legislator Taylor, second by legislator Delahanty. Any questions on the floor?
Yes, Legislator Turp.
Yes, legislator Turp.
So unless I'm reading this wrong, which is definitely a possibility, it looks like the second paragraph says the City of Rochester will pay for a firearms instructor to train all Monroe County police officers in the use of firearms. However, the specific legislation says funding for this agreement is included in the proposed 2021 operating budget of the Department of Public Safety. So that looks like it's a little bit of a conundrum. So who is actually paying for this, the services of this training through the chair?
Through the chair, this is Ginny Verhagen in Public Safety. The city actually pays the instructors and the county reimburses for their skill. So we kind of both.
It is both. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Item passes. Next item on the agenda.
Referral 20-0349, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Stop DWI Foundation, Inc. for DWI crackdown weekend enforcement, authorized intermunicipal agreements with 8 municipalities.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Turp. Any questions on the floor? I apologize. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes. Next item on the agenda.
Referral 20-0350, authorized intermunicipal agreements with 10 municipalities in Monroe County for the Stop DWI law enforcement program.
Move it, Madam Chair.
Moved by legislator Turp, seconded by legislator
Alcoffer.
Taylor. Elkoffer, fine. Legislator Elkoffer. Any
Yes.
questions on the floor? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes. Last item on the agenda.
Referral 20-0351, authorizing an intermunicipal agreement with Orleans County for the location and operation of interoperable communications equipment.
Moved by legislator.
Move it, Madam Chairwoman.
Legislator.
Second.
Moved by legislator Elkoffer, seconded by legislator Taylor. Any questions on the floor? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Item passes. All right. Are there any other matters to come before this committee this evening? There are no other matters. The November 23rd, 2020 meeting of the Public Safety Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Public Safety Committee will be Monday, December 21st at 5